I'm so delighted to be here today with Sumaya O'Grady, known as the Soul Alchemist. We've been friends for years, and I'm just so excited about our upcoming event, Beyond the Matrix, March 19th and 20th. And Sumaya will be offering the Violet Flame. And so she's going to tell us all about that today. Thanks for joining us, Sumaya.
Oh, I'm so honored to be here. I love doing this with you.
Yes. And our upcoming event, Tuesday the 19th, is the day before the spring equinox, and then Wednesday, March 20th, is the spring equinox. So the event is all about this sacred day and preparing for it with energetic activations, initiations, transmissions, and offerings like Sumaya is going to be giving us. So let's just start by introducing yourself to our audience so they can get to know you a little bit better.
Okay, all right.
So you started on a spiritual path decades ago.
Yes, I would say about 50 years ago, or that gives a lot away. But then I have white hair, so they will kind of get it. I've been around for a while.
Yes, but they're very wise as a result.
As a result, yeah, wisdom sometimes comes at a high price, but people who've been on the spiritual path know that.
Yes, yes. So what was your first introduction to the spiritual world?
Well, really, when I was in my 20s, I was fascinated by astrology and tarot cards and all those things, you know. And so I studied them for years. I didn't really know that there were spiritual masters, you know, or ascended masters. That wasn't really in the vocabulary back then. But then later on, I found out about the book written by Paramahansa Yogananda. It's called Autobiography of a Yogi. And
yes,
that book changed everything for me. It was huge. It was my first introduction to that kind of love. You know, I fell in love with Yogananda, basically.
Yeah, that's one of the highest selling books of all time.
Yes.
Comparative to the Bible. I was really shocked to read that. Yeah, when you think about like worldwide.
Had no idea. Well, apparently it was the only book on Steve Jobs' iPad.
It's on my iPad.
I know, it's on mine too.
I have it on audio. I own a copy.
Yep. Yes, I've read it many times, and so that was one particular awakening. You know, and then I began to discover other spiritual teachers. I moved to Santa Cruz, California, which is a real nexus. It's kind of like Sedona of the West, you know.
Okay.
Of the Pacific West. And as I just began to experience more of that kind of having a teacher, I didn't know that you could have a teacher. Because I was my own teacher, and I am that again now, but there was a period when I really benefited from having teachers.
Yes.
Yeah, it was an important period in my life. So.
Yeah, I think it can be really beneficial to have a teacher, and ultimately you're in search of the guru within. But to get to that place, certainly teachers, guidance, books helped a lot.
Helped a lot. I think the main teacher I had, the first living teacher that was very significant for me, was a Tibetan Buddhist teacher who was quite a wild, crazy character. And the more crazy he was, the more I loved him. I like that kind of unexpected craziness. So, and then later I met a Sufi master from Jerusalem, and I studied with each of those teachers for really long periods of time. So.
Yes, and the first time we interviewed, probably 4 years ago, you were studying Sufism still, and your Sufi master was still amongst us.
Still alive. Yes, he was.
Yes, but when he passed, that really marked a transformational shift for you.
It did. I didn't quite see it coming, but I was really ready to leave that path and to move on to something else that I didn't know what it was. And then he died, and it was as if some tether just went spring, and I went flying off somewhere through the cosmos by myself. And it was quite a shocking, powerful experience. All I could do was shake and cry for months.
Yes, I remember that.
Yeah, you do. So, but then, I realized he knew I was ready to leave, and he released me when he died,
Yeah.
It was an act of love.
Yes.
And I feel deep gratitude for all that I got from him, and I was really ready to not have a teacher, to be myself as the teacher.
Yeah, because I guess you can get dependent too.
Some people do, yeah.
Kind of an outside rather than an inside, but
it is.
Yeah. Interesting dynamic there, but yes. And so then you discovered Saint Germain.
Yes. Now that was kind of a surprise. I didn't expect to discover an ascended master in that particular way. But actually it was you who guided me to a particular book that had a chapter about him and the violet flame, and I read it, and it was, wow, something just woke up. It was like an inner knowing that I recognized. It was like my soul went, oh, I know this, So that started it, and one thing led to another, and I ended up connecting very deeply with him on the inner planes and channeling him just for myself. I don't do it as, on the outer.
Sure.
And learning from him about the violet flame and how to use it. He's quite an amazing teacher. Like all of my teachers seem to have quite a sense of humor.
Yes, he does.
Yes.
I've heard people channel him, like Danielle Minster.
Yes, right.
Yeah, and we're all rolling on the floor. He's got a very funny sense of humor before he really dives into the teaching.
Yes.
He kind of lightens the mood and
yes, yeah, very dry sense of humor sometimes. So that started it, and then through that I began to make deep connections with other guides that he's connected to as Yeshua, who people recognize as Jesus, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Michael, Archangel Michael, and they are really my main guides right now. I know they are guides for many people.
Yes, powerful.
They get around. But Saint Germain is part of that group, and when I go within and get my inner guidance for all the work that I do in the world, that's who I talk to. And Saint Germain and the Violet Flame, though, are the programs and the work I put out into the world to teach people certain important things about those. So, yeah.
So tell us about the violet flame and what Saint Germain has taught you about how to use it, and also when you're working with others.
Yes. One of the things that I had begun to already know this, but I didn't have the most powerful tools, is that at the bottom of most pain, most emotional pain, is the lack of self-love. And so many people don't really even know what self-love is, and they don't recognize, like, how do you get it, what do you do, and then how do you heal from all the self-blame of blaming yourself for mistakes and blaming yourself. Well, I know for my own self, I blame myself for a lifetime of mistakes. Oh, if only I hadn't done this, this wouldn't have happened,
Yeah.
And then forgiving other people for their mistakes that have affected you. That's a huge one. Those are like boulders in front of the door to ascension.
I like that. Yes.
So, yeah, so I began to learn through Saint Germain and a particular book that he directed me to, called the I Am Discourses, Volume 3, which I recommend to everyone.
Yes.
And I developed programs, and he gave me full permission to just take what I was getting and run with it. So I did. And that's what I've done. I've created a number of different programs where I help people step into self-love and self-forgiveness and forgiveness of others, because when you have that, whatever happens, whatever life throws at you, you really become unstoppable. You're unsinkable.
You know, that forgiveness work is so powerful, and I feel it really does start with forgiving yourself first. And
Yes.
when I was writing my first book, I came up with this forgiveness practice, but started with going into the mirror and first of all saying, I forgive you. And then the next step was, I love you. And I had to choke that out for a few months before I could even teach the practice or write about it, because it was very, very difficult to do it and really mean it.
It is. It really is, yeah. You were brave doing it by yourself, for yourself.
Right.
And the fact that you actually knew that this was what you needed to do, that's really powerful. So a lot of people don't yet know that is the very key to what has to happen next for the real life mastery and spiritual acceleration that results.
Yes. Yeah. That was my experience too. Yeah, definite spiritual acceleration, and then really beginning to forgive others, no matter what. Yeah.
That's huge. But when you love yourself, it is so much easier to forgive others. That is the key. You can't do it without that, because if you love yourself, it is actually impossible to hate or resent another human being. And if I catch myself resenting somebody, I know, okay, Sumaya, tank up some more on self-love, because that's the remedy. It's the remedy for everything. I have to tell everybody, this is it.
Love. Love is the most powerful force in the universe, and it does start with self-love. And, our upbringing, sometimes the programming that we've gotten throughout our entire lives, is you're not good enough.
Yes.
And when you don't think you're good enough, how can you love yourself enough, Yeah, so both of those things. I am worthy, I forgive myself, I love myself, and then anything's possible after that. You can love others more fully and forgive them and know and remind them that they're worthy too.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's the key. That's what everybody wants. They want to know they're worthy, that they're worthy of love. And so I think if we had that, there would be no war, there would be no hunger, there would be none of the problems that we have now. So I've devised a step-by-step method to help somebody walk into this piece by piece.
Wonderful.
And I have several ways that I do that, stair-step methods. And because I recognize it as one of the most important things that anyone can do. Even if you're not on a spiritual path, you don't have to be, But my guess is that if someone really loves and forgives, that the light that comes through you when that happens will then probably draw them onto a spiritual path of some kind. There's no requirement that you believe a certain thing, in order to do what I teach.
Oh, wonderful. It's open to everyone.
Yeah.
Yes, your big open heart invites everyone in. And I love the name of your website, Soul Deep Confidence.
Yes.
Because that's really what we're talking about.
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
Beautiful. So now at our Beyond the Matrix event, tell us about what you're going to do for the audience with the Violet Flame.
Well, I have a very powerful meditation that includes 5 main activations. And I start with connecting to Gaia and bringing forth powerful light and light from the great central sun, and that's the opening, because that's the grounder, but that's also the first activation. And then from there we go into awakening to your divine self, which Saint Germain uses the term of the I Am Presence. And that's another activation, using very powerful decrees to claim it, like just saying things like, I am the pure radiance of divine love. Saying that as a divine being awakens you to the fact that, yes, this other part of your being that's not quite sure you feel that way begins to get the light from that. It begins to bring, as above, so below. It begins to all come together. So I guide people into that and into a couple of other experiences with the violet flame to connect with whatever you would like to release and then upgrade your DNA. So that's what it will be. It's going to be very powerful. It's about 20 minutes.
Beautiful.
And yeah. So there are 5 activations that are included on all that. Yeah. So I love doing this. I've done this a few times before for large groups, and people are, wow, at the end. You can see everyone's face. It looks so light.
Beautiful. And
yeah.
I'm sure that Saint Germain probably joins you for this and blesses everyone who is participating.
He does, actually, yes. A friend of mine who's very, very psychic says she saw him standing behind me while I was doing it.
Yeah.
I felt very supported by him all the way through with what I've, worked on for myself and then developed for other people, and then have begun teaching in a big way. And I feel very deeply supported by him and all my other guides.
Yes,
So,
yeah. Beautiful. Well, this is something you won't want to miss. So, along with all the other presenters and speakers, Sumaya is going to stand out with her violet flame transmission and blessing. And without a doubt, the Ascended Master Saint Germain himself will be there to support her and the rest of the group present with divine, radiant love. Thank you so much for all that you do to serve and bless everyone.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to share about it. I love doing that.
You're so very welcome. And thanks so much for joining us. Hopefully we'll see you in Sedona. Many blessings.